If you've ever wondered what modifications you're allowed to make to your 4x4, then this is the video you want to watch. So in this particular video, I'm talking more specifically about the GWM tank. And this is a direct letter or response I got from GWM head office in South Africa that basically stipulates, according to my questions, what mods you're allowed to do to the Tank 300. And I suppose any of the tank brand, tank vehicles in South Africa. Now, this list or these responses may apply to any other manufacturer as well. I think that all have exactly the same kind of reply. So this applies to Tank and or Toyota or any other vehicle, I would imagine. But you can confirm with your own brand, the head office, if you want. But this would probably apply to most 4x4s that you want to modify. Okay, so as you can see, got it from GWM, addressed to me. Okay, so the first thing I want to highlight here is there were a number of questions that I asked. Some of the questions obviously were like bigger wheels, snorkels, all of those type of things. So if you want to get answers to those questions, then keep watching the video right till the end, because there's actually a lot of information. 16 questions, so watch to the end and then you'll be able to get answers to most of them. I just want to preface something that a lot of the answers to these questions are sort of, they answer them generically when they want to have a generic answer to something, okay? Some of them are very specific, and we'll get to those in a minute. Okay, so the first question I asked them was, can bigger wheels be fitted to the tank? If yes, then up to what size is deemed okay and won't void a warranty claim? So the reply to this was, we do not recommend fitting larger wheels. So these are slightly larger. These are like, I think about an inch larger. We do not recommend fitting larger wheels than standard sizes. However, you may fit wheels of your choice as your vehicle. So just remember that line there. Please do note that we will always honor our warranty with your larger wheels. And however, you should take cognizance of and be reasonable to understand that at any point regarding any unfortunate failures as a direct result of the larger wheels may not be covered, or proportional cover may apply, and you will have to take responsibility for the necessary repairs as applicable. Any failures unrelated or causes by the larger wheels, we will honor the warranty. Okay, so what they're saying is that it's your vehicle, okay, and that's a theme throughout this letter, is that it's your vehicle and do whatever you want to it. However, if there is a claim that can be associated to the larger wheels or any of the modifications, really, Kat? Now you want to come here to me? If there are any claims that you make that could be attributed to the modification, that's where obviously they will apply the rule to say, well, we say that, you know, fitting 35-inch tires to your vehicle and your bearings have failed, or your steering rack has failed, they would potentially, be able to say that, well, they're not going to honor the warranty, right? Because it adds extra stress, it's out of sort of spec and those type of things. And I think we should all be quite reasonable to that. Now, not saying that this vehicle is going to have those issues, but I think any vehicle where you modify it out of spec, or put extra strain on the parts, would be susceptible to a warranty or partial warranty not being awarded, okay? So let's just keep that in mind. Okay, question 2. Can an aftermarket snorkel be fitted? You may fit the snorkel as it is your vehicle, and depending on where you will be using the vehicle. Please do note that we will always honor the warranty. However, you should take cognizance of and be reasonable to understand that any point regarding an unfortunate failure as a direct result of the snorkel may not be covered, or proportional cover may apply, and you will have to take responsibility for the necessary repairs as applicable. Any failures unrelated or caused by the snorkel will honor the warranty. Okay, so that's, again, it's your vehicle, you can do whatever you want. However, they don't say don't fit it, and it's probably recommended if you're going to be using the vehicle and wading a lot, going through deep water, obviously you want to fit the snorkel. If you want it just for the looks, same thing, you can fit the snorkel. However, if there is a warranty claim and they can pin it to the snorkel, the aftermarket accessory, then again, there's going to be some kind of a debate right around that. And again, I think it comes down to case by case. So in other words, if you fit a snorkel and water gets into the engine, obviously they're not going to cover that, even though you had a snorkel. Really, Cat, every single time. But yeah, if something happens, let's say you fit the snorkel and you put a different kind of filter in, and then something happens with the mass airflow sensor or something like that on the internals, and the car is not idling properly, whatever reason, then maybe they're going to say, well, you fitted something, it's caused the mass airflow sensor to become clogged, and therefore, they're not going to cover it. So it all depends, guys. So I mean, you've got to just be cognizant of that. If you want to modify a vehicle, there might be certain things that you might not be able to claim for. So let's move on to the next question. Okay, moving on to the next question. This is number 3. Can an aftermarket suspension be fitted? If so, then up to what height is permitted? Is a 2-inch lift okay? It says you may fit another suspension upgrade as it is your vehicle. Again, same story. Again, the whole story is, again, we will honor the warranty. Please note, we will always honor the warranty. However, should you take cognizance of a reasonable understand that at any point regarding an unfortunate failure as a direct result of the suspension may not be covered, or proportional cover may apply, and you have to take responsibility. Okay, so they're saying, it's case by case, it depends. We're not outright saying, no, we're not going to cover anything. But, if you fit an aftermarket suspension and something related to the fitment of the suspension breaks or falls off or whatever, then they might not cover that part. Okay, but it doesn't mean to say that the whole vehicle is not covered. It's just that specific part related to that suspension will be obviously subject to scrutiny. So next question, question 4, is can a catback exhaust be fitted? So if you guys know what a catback is, it's basically you have your exhaust pipe which comes from the turbo. So it comes from the turbo all the way down to the back of the vehicle. So obviously a catback is after the catalytic converter. So a catalytic converter is something that converts the harmful fumes in your tailpipe, coming out of your tailpipe, into less harmful compounds. And so it's obviously good for the environment and things like that. So what you can do is then fit an exhaust, a wider, maybe like a 3-inch or a 2.5-inch exhaust, like a 70mm maybe exhaust, from the last catalytic converter all the way to the back. So that's removing all the boxes along the way. What's that going to do for you? So that might give you a slight increase in performance. So the catback basically will allow less back pressure from the turbo, which then is more of a free flow performance, giving you a gain in horsepower potentially and some torque. But also it gives you a different sound. So if you're looking for a better sound from your tank or any 4x4, that's going to help. But what they're saying is, we do not recommend this modification. Okay? However, we cannot prevent you or any owner from doing this as it's your own vehicle and the rest of the malarkey. So I don't know what failures they would attribute to that. So if this, let's say your turbo pops for some other reason, maybe they could say, well, it's because of the exhaust. Highly doubt that, because no mechanic would be able to say that, because actually fitting a catback exhaust would actually improve the turbo's performance and improve the reliability of the turbo, because you're not putting pressure on the turbo, you're allowing the air and the heat to more freely move away from the turbo. So therefore, I think it's a preservation of the turbo. So, again, case by case, but they say they do not recommend it. However, if you pull into your tank dealership and you are going for a service, or you have some other warranty claim, they're not going to then go and say, sorry, we can't honor anything on this vehicle. So again, it's case by case, but they say they do not recommend it. So that's one to note. Okay, moving around the back, I don't have my tow bar on right now. But now, this is the question about the tow bar. Can an aftermarket tow bar be fitted using the same or current trailer socket? So the socket that's underneath there, the stock one. So in other words, we're not cutting into any looms, we're not doing any of those type of things. So I'm saying, so not cutting into any wiring looms. And they say, well, we do not recommend this modification as we have a genuine tow bar available which can be supplied via our dealer. So I think that's just because they want to sell their tow bars, right? So it's not necessarily that it's going to void anything. It's just that rather they want you to rather fit their tow bar. It's understandable they're saying that. They want to make a bit of profit around that. So I think tow bars are fine. It says, however, we cannot prevent you from fitting this to your vehicle. Again, the whole spiel about the normal spiel that they gave you. Okay, so now moving around to the front again. All right, we're under the engine bay now. All right, so can a performance filter be fitted into the standard OEM box? That's this box over here, such as a K&N filter. So this is the point that I brought up before about K&N filters. We do not recommend this modification. However, we cannot prevent you or any owner from fitting this modification to your vehicle. Same spiel as before. Like I explained before, if you do not treat the K&N filter correctly, in other words, when you get a K&N filter, it's dry, it's got nothing applied to it, and it is porous, so it's going to allow air to go through it. However, it's not going to trap the particles. So what you normally need to do is you take the K&N oil. It's a special oil. Don't use vegetable oil or any other oil. It's a special oil, and then you treat the filter with this oil, and the oil then obviously sits inside of all the fibers, inside of the gauze, and when particles come through, the particles then get trapped against the oil, and that allows you, well, that's effectively the filter. Now, if you put too much oil on the K&N filter, what's going to happen is that some of that oil could, as you're accelerating hard, it's going to suck some of that oil out, and it's going to go through all your intake here, and it goes past the sensors. There are intake sensors somewhere here, so there's airflow sensors and all these type of things, and potentially what can happen is those little sensors, electrical sensors, can get clogged with the oil residue, and then obviously not function properly, and then your car could have all sorts of idling problems or excessive fuel consumption, or etc. etc. So that is why they would probably not recommend it. I don't know how much, with the turbo engine, how much performance you're going to get out of that. I would personally just stick with those normal air filters, because I don't think with the K&N you're going to get a lot of performance, and potentially, you're going to be opening up yourself up to other issues. So I would just not do that modification, but I had to ask the question. Okay, question 7. So we're almost halfway there. Can aftermarket front and rear bumpers be fitted? Again, they're not saying no, but because actually fitting an aftermarket bumper is probably not going to avoid the warranty at all. I'd say that's a thumbs up. I'd say bumpers are perfectly fine to use. Okay, moving around to the front. Again, can a winch be fitted to the tank? Here we go. This is one of the first absolute yeses. Yes, provided it is done through a reputable fitment center within the general off-road acceptable standards. So absolutely, you can fit a winch. Obviously, then you'd have to replace the bumper. You can't use the existing bumper, and you'll probably need a winch cradle and all that type of thing. But as long as it's fitted to an approved center, I'm pretty sure it's not going to affect anything. So that's a yes. Okay, you can guess why we're over here. The other question then is, can rock sliders be fitted to the tank? Answer is yes. And that's it, yes. I actually want to say one thing about this tank is that these things are basically like rock sliders. I mean, but there's lots of scratches here, and I've actually beached this whole vehicle like like resting on these sliders here, or on these steps, where the vehicle was literally tilting like a rock slider. And yes, the plastic gets scratched and it gets twisted and bent, but these rock sliders are still absolutely straight. And that's the reason is because they've got 4 mounting points, which are actually very strong. And secondly, there's actually I think it's a solid aluminium, I think it's a solid, or at least it's a sort of a square tube aluminium bar underneath here, which is very, very strong. So you can stand on this thing, the whole vehicle can rest on these side steps, and nothing happens. So as long as you're not worried about how it looks, I wouldn't be replacing the rock sliders in a hurry, or sorry, I wouldn't be replacing these side steps in a hurry, because they're actually very, very strong. And I've bashed them and hit rocks with them and sort of beached the vehicle onto these side steps on numerous occasions, and come away with absolutely nothing wrong with them. And the cat's back. Okay, so we're inside the vehicle now, because I can't really show you the transmission, but anyway. So number 10, question 10 was, can a transmission cooler be fitted to the tank? The answer is, we do not recommend this modification. So, and then they give you the whole spiel again about how we can't prevent you from doing it, but it's not recommended. They don't say why it's not recommended, but it's not recommended. Probably not necessary unless you're towing heavy weights for long distances. Then you might have a little bit of transmission heat. Obviously, any vehicle is susceptible to that, but probably not really an issue. All right, question 11. Can any performance tuning be done to the engine? We do not recommend this modification, and will impact warranty if any failures occur on the powertrain and drivetrain, including related failures of engine and control modules. So that makes sense, right? Obviously, everyone knows that performance tuning is absolutely not recommended. For obvious reasons. You're literally messing with the parameters in the engine. You making the engine put higher output, and from a manufacturer point of view, that's not recommended. Any aftermarket modifications in that regard is not recommended, and is completely understandable. So do that at your own risk, but yeah, it's not recommended. Okay, it's getting dark here, but I've got my light, so it's fine. Question 12, can wheel spacers be fitted to the tank? So wheel spacer is basically a block of machined aluminium with lug studs or lugs that can go in and bolt to the hub, and then it's got another set of studs that come out, and you put your wheel against it. That just pushes the wheel out a bit more, so you get that more of a wider stance. We do not recommend this alteration. Obviously, it can put on excessive pressure on your bearings, because you're moving the center of pressure, the center of the load, you're moving it out from the hub, so that's maybe putting some pressure on the bearing, and obviously it can cause some failure. So again, do it at your own risk. It's your own vehicle, do whatever you want. Okay, moving on to a battery system. Can a dual battery setup be fitted to the tank? You may fit a battery system to your vehicle and ensure you seek dealership guidance on wiring, layout, and power sources. Please do note that we will always honor the warranty. However, you should take cognizance of and be reasonable to understand that at any point regarding unfortunate failures as a direct result of the battery system may not be covered, or proportional cover may apply. You have to take responsibility for the necessary repairs as applicable. Any failures unrelated or caused by the system will honor the warranty. Okay, so guys, this is my lithium-ion battery. I've actually built a little battery case here with a handle out of a big gym box. So it works perfectly because it's a lithium-ion battery. I can just use the handle over here, and I can just pick up the whole thing and move it around. I've got my Brad Harrison there, so I can put this in the trailer, or I can move it into the vehicle, and then that's my dual battery system. So you're allowed to do that. So you would have a Brad Harrison like this inside of the vehicle, and you can plug your battery in there, and with your DC to DC charger, that would be able to charge the battery from inside the vehicle. I haven't got that wired up right now, but that's theoretically what you can do. So why I like that solution is because I can have it inside of the trailer, or I can have it inside of the vehicle, and it's in the box, it's lithium, so it's quite light, so I can just move it around. So let's move on to the next question. Can aftermarket brake discs and pads be fitted to the tank, i.e. larger diameter slotted and drilled? So the answer to that is we do not recommend this modification, as brakes are safety related. So that's, up to you, take it at your own risk, but basically if you're messing with the brakes, they're not liable for anything, although, arguably the tank could do with some brake upgrades, although it's not bad. But if you're adding weight to the vehicle and you've got a big hunky trailer on the back, upgrading your brakes would be something that you could look at, but again, not really something that you need to do, so I wouldn't worry about that. But they're just saying that they're not going to cover anything related to that. So let's move on to the next question. Okay, can any body parts be changed, such as aftermarket bonnet or different fenders be fitted? We cannot prevent you or any owner from fitting these to your vehicle. Please note that we will always honor the warranty. So basically they're saying, do whatever you want to the vehicle in terms of the fenders. You can add different fenders, you can add different bumpers, you can add different bonnet scoops, things like that. I don't think it's going to affect anything on the warranty. They're not mentioning anything about a warranty, but yeah, it's just something to take into consideration. Okay, and on to the last question finally. Can an additional fuel tank be fitted to the tank? It says you may fit an additional fuel tank to your vehicle, and ensure you seek a dealership guidance on fuel line layout. Please do know that we will always honor the warranty. However, should you take cognizance of the fact, etc., etc. So if anything has to happen in relation to fitting of that fuel tank, then obviously that case by case would be, warranty would be, based on that case, and it may not cover or it will cover. But basically, yeah, you can fit an aftermarket fuel tank, which is cool. All right, guys, that's it. That was that was quite a slog, but that's it. That's all the questions answered. If you have any other questions or any other mods that you think I might have left out, I didn't put things like roof racks and things. I think that's that's normal. It's just sort of a bolt-on ladders and things like that. It's all on the outside of the vehicle. You're not really modifying the vehicle itself. Normally, the roof racks and things just clip on with some kind of a clamp, or into the roof tracks, whatever. But I mean, those are not things that I focused on, because I don't think those are going to be those are ubiquitous. Every vehicle has an ability to fit roof racks on, and I don't think the dealerships really worry about that. Obviously, if you're overloading the vehicle and you're putting extra stress on the top, and you're like putting 300-400 kilos on the top, and something happens, your window cracks or something like that, obviously that's being negligent, and that may result in a warranty claim, but that's not something I covered. But these are most of the modifications I think most 4x4 owners will consider, and these are the questions, these are the answers that you guys might have been needing to know. And yeah, so happy travels. If you have any other mods that you think I didn't cover, please put it down in the description. And again, 90% of you that watch these videos are not subscribed. This is a tank focused channel, but it's going to be broadening out to more 4x4 related content around general 4x4ing, using the tank obviously as the main vehicle. But if you have a tank, then please subscribe. There's a lot of content here. Join the WhatsApp community that we have. Follow us on social media. But if you don't have a tank, please also subscribe, because I'm going to be doing tire comparisons. I'm going to be doing all sorts of driving modes, and what modes you should be looking at when you're doing certain off-road conditions. So I've got a lot of content that's going to be good for you to consume if you own a 4x4, you think about getting into 4x4. I'm also going to be doing comparisons between your favorite 4x4s and the tank and other 4x4s, just comparisons. So if you're giving me that subscribe and a like, and maybe share it with someone else, that'll really help the channel. It'll really help me to produce more content like this. So I appreciate every one of you, and I always answer all your comments. So if you have any comments or suggestions, leave them down in the description, and I'll see you guys in the next one.